I'm Florence Chatten. I was born in Seymour Township and moved here in 1947 when I married Roy Chatten, was the owner of this farm, which used to stretch from the fence you see beside me right clear to 401. I'm 95 years old. I've been around here for a long, long time. I've always had an interest in history, and I found people who shared that interest when I came down here to the township. One of them was a Mrs. Flindle, who seemed to know everything about everybody, and I enjoyed listening to her stories. So that inspired me much later on to write a book called Brighton Township, where I attempted to list all the little hamlets that became Brighton Township. I told a bit of the history of each one. And also because I ran into so many interesting people. And I found a story of a war bride, a story of people who had come here from Prince Edward County, many, many different topics. This is a picture of myself and my husband on our wedding day. That was in 1947. That was when I moved down here to Brighton Township. This, I felt, was a very important part of Canadian history. The Women's Institute was founded at Stony Creek in 1897 by Adelaide Hoodless. And she was interested in making sure that rural women had access to information about everything from education to health issues to looking after their children, everything that concerned farm wives. What she was trying to do was elevate their education. And this same organization spread countrywide. It moved to the British Isles, and then it moved gradually over the whole world. There are institutes in Australia, in Africa, all over. This particular picture is of a Women's Institute meeting in Harrington, Ontario, where there is still a Women's Institute. Myself, I belong to the Community Women's Institute, which is situated around Hilton and Brighton. This is Robert Heath. His parents were Fred and Gladys Heath, and they operated a general store on number 30 Highway. And they also had a post office there, and Gladys used to deliver mail in the area all around. And their living quarters were to the left of the main entrance where the store was. And Robert is seen here enjoying himself out in the snow. He went on to be an accountant and worked for a while in Coburg. And then when he retired, he came back down here. By this time, the old store house was getting very dilapidated, so he tore it down and built a new house there, which you will still see on the west side of number 30, just before you get to the Hilton sign. This is the Harrington family. Went back to Morris Harrington, and then his son Esley, and his wife Claire Niece was one in a million because she took pictures of the men when they were working with tractors or bringing in harvest, herding cattle, doing all kinds of things. I was so fortunate to get her pictures to put in my Brighton Township book. This is the barn is gone now, but it was there at the Harrington Farm. And this goes back to the Harrington Farm, and this goes back to the time when we shipped milk. There were several dairy farms. In fact, you couldn't move anywhere along this road or Carmen Road without meeting a dairy farmer. And here they're loading cans of milk. And at that time, it would have been taken down to Spencer's Dairy in Brighton. After that, the big Toronto dairies came scouting through the country, looking for people who would send milk there. So many of the farmers, my husband Roy Chatten included, decided to go with that. So they had to put in big milk coolers, and the milk was picked up and shipped to Toronto. Yes, this is the Harrington Farm again. That's just east of here. If you follow this road, follow the curve and come up to the top of the hill, that's the Harrington Farm. There's the Harrington barn, and there's a drive shed there. If I were guessing, this is probably Alan Harrington, the eldest of Esley and Claire Niece's children. There are crates there, and I wouldn't want to say for sure, but they could be potato crates or apple crates. If I were guessing, I'd say potatoes, because that was a big crop that was grown here. In the fall, why the farmers hired everybody they could get hold of to come and help pick up the potatoes. So that barn is gone now. I think there's a new house there. And that's, as I said, the farm is still there. Oh, this is a family I knew well when I first came down here. This is the Mrs. Russell and her 5 daughters. The house is still there. If you go up Telephone Road, just to the south of us, go right up to the top, and there you will find a heritage house. That was the Russell farm, and the house is still there. As I say, it's a heritage house. And this is Mrs. Russell and her 5 daughters. I think they're all gone now. There might be one girl left. I'm not dead sure. But they were a wonderful family. They took part in everything that went on in the neighborhood. That was the time when the church was the center of everything that went on. There were young people's groups, and there were all kinds of festivities going on up here at the hall. So, oh yes, this takes me back. She was a fine person. This sash and door factory was, sash window and door, I guess I should say, was located at Smithfield. As far as I know, the building is still there. There was a dam across a mill pond there, and that was what he used to power his equipment. His name was Mr. Doig. And the last I heard, Ivan Flindle had that, but he moved away for some reason or other. But it supplied, as I say, sashes, doors, windows for all the people around. I married Roy Chatten in 1947. The house wasn't young then. It was built in 1890 by a Mr. Becker. A. Becker was a prominent citizen in Brighton, and he decided to become part of Brighton Township when he came out here. He was reeve of the township. He was secretary. He filled several different jobs. And when Roy bought the house, he and his brother had the farm here. And I must say, it was a money pit. It was old, and it needed a lot of things done to it. I remember one thing. They decided that they wanted a stairway from the kitchen to the basement. So what did they do? They cut through a joist and put the stairway in, which meant, of course, when you walked into the kitchen, you were going like this. You skidded to the center of the kitchen floor. Anyway, it was a beautiful old house, 10-foot ceilings, lots of rooms. It was a great place for the kids to grow up because they had lots of room to bring their friends down. They had sleepovers. One time, Roy used to go to the council meetings up here at the Township Hall. And when he was reeve, one time they went up and they opened the door to the hall, and they were met by a cloud of smoke because the chimney had plugged. So he was resourceful, and he said, "Okay, come on with me." And he brought the whole council down to our house, and they had their council meeting around our kitchen table. And then I fed them tea and cookies.